So I'm quite fortunate my husband isn't here for the first service, so I get to tell tales on him. But I'm going to be in trouble at the 10:30. You're going to tell him me? Okay. So there are two types of people in our household. There are those who like socks, and there are those who don't. There are those who wear socks 24/7 and only take their socks off to take a shower. And there are those who will grudgingly put them on if it's snowing outside, but only if I'm going outside. There are those who wear their hiking boots at the beach. And there are those who delight in walking barefoot in the sand, in the grass, and yes, even to preach a sermon. So several of you have asked me about that since my arrival here at St. George, and so I thought I would just share with everybody that going barefoot helps me stay grounded. It helps me remember I'm standing on holy ground, and it's a sign of my humility before God. And I'm trying to listen to God while I'm up here. It's a sign of who I am and where I came from. I'm just a barefooted, redneck country girl from North Florida. A few years ago, Peter and I heard a simple song at a concert that it originated in the song circles in California. And I'm not sure who wrote it, but it goes like this. Put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. You can hear what she says if you listen. Put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. You can hear what she says if you listen. It's the sound of the river as it moves across the stones. It's the same sound as the blood in your body as it moves across your bones. Are you listening? Are you listening? So put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. You can hear what she says if you listen. It's the sound of the river as it moves across the stones. It's the same sound as the blood in your body as it moves across your bones. Are you listening? And this song just repeats over and over. It can be sung as a canon with beautiful harmonies. And if you want to hear a really good version, there's a Thrive Choir, it's called. You can just YouTube it, Thrive Choir, put your roots down. And their version is way better than mine, so I encourage you to listen to it. But this song became a real grounding prayer song for me when I was in seminary. So seminary can be a really heady, stressful place. So when I became overwhelmed with deadlines and theology papers and all the meetings and the steps that were involved with becoming an ordained priest, and all of that would be swirling around in my head, I'd take my shoes off and walk barefoot in the grass, often on the way to chapel in the morning, just quietly singing to myself, put your roots down, put your feet on the ground. And it just really helped me to ground myself. Sometimes as I'd walk to class, I'd touch as many leaves and shrubs and trees as I could on the way, just connecting with nature, connecting with beauty. And I was reminded of that this week when I was fortunate enough to be able to take one of our parishioners to his cancer treatment. And he said, give me a little fist bump for energy. And we did that. And it reminded me a little bit about getting that little fist bump, that little hand slap from nature as I was walking to class. My favorite spot to pray and reconnect with nature during seminary was a marker tree. And if you don't know what marker trees are, I had a Cherokee mentor when I was in seminary, and he told me about this when I was about half a mile from our house. But basically what Cherokee people would do, and other indigenous people, especially in the southeast of the United States, was that they would bend these saplings way over and then tie them with rope or cloth so that they could then, as they grew into large trees, they would point the way either to a fresh water source or to a hunting trail. So I found 2 of those when I was in seminary on this mountain in Tennessee where I was. But over time, a lot of the trees have fallen over, died, but the ones that are left are huge. And you could, the one that he told me about that was near our house, you could actually sit on it, recline on it. It was like a bench, and really kind of snuggle into it. So that was one of my favorite places to pray. So they leave a lovely spot to sit and remember. Remember what indigenous people have known for ages, that we don't own the earth, but we belong with the earth to God, and that creation can speak to us if we listen. So it's the season of creation in the Episcopal Church. Each year from the beginning of September to early October, many Christian denominations unite for this worldwide celebration. It's a special season when we celebrate God as our creator and acknowledge creation, with a capital C, as the divine continuing act that summons us to love and care for the gift of all that is created. So part of our season of creation will involve the blessing of the animals as we observe St. Francis Day at St. George in early October. But one of the things I really liked in the season of creation materials this year is that they are intentionally capitalizing the word creation in the hopes that we will begin to integrate that indigenous concept of creation as a subject with a capital C instead of a little c object. They write, creation is not an object that has been created for human use, but rather a subject that we are called to relate to and collaborate with as fellow creatures. By capitalizing creation, we refer to both the created order and the mystery of God's continuing act of creation. We acknowledge the whole created order or the whole cosmos as a way of showing our theological respect, our reverence, our accountability, our responsibility, and our independence with the natural world. So subjects and objects. Not only have we treated the natural world as an object, we've treated other people as objects. We are learning, and God is still creating through us, in us, and around us. And Jesus was still learning just like us in our gospel today. In last week's gospel lesson, Jesus was in Jerusalem preaching and teaching to the scribes and the Pharisees and large crowds. He is tired and he needs some time off. So according to Mark's gospel, which is known to get geographical things, references wrong at times, so I'm kind of holding this a little bit loosely. According to Mark's gospel, he travels on foot to Tyre and Sidon. Now, I was fortunate enough to visit the Holy Land last summer, just before the war broke out. So I was curious, where exactly was that? Where did he go? How far was that? And so looking at ancient maps, what I discovered was Jerusalem is down here in the middle of the country, and Tyre and Sidon were north and kind of east of the Sea of Galilee, and Caesarea Philippi, which was over here. And so the Bible says that Jesus was heading to Caesarea Philippi, but for some reason he takes a big side tangent. And Jesus would have had to walk about 50 hours. That's about 6 or 7 days if you're walking 8 hours a day just to get to Caesarea Philippi. So it's kind of strange that he would then take another side trip that would take him another 3 or 4 days of hard walking. And then I looked at the map and I thought, well, Nazareth is kind of on the way. Bethany's on the way. He knows his mother's in Nazareth, right? Or Lazarus and Mary and Martha are in Bethany. Why didn't he just go on vacation to their house? Why did he go all the way to Tyre and Sidon where he doesn't know anybody? It was Gentile territory and he was in Jewish territory. But he was tired and looking for a rest, so he was not there to do ministry. And I struggle with this gospel because I don't understand why the gospel writer would portray Jesus as being mean or anything less than fully compassionate and loving. Some scholars believe that this story illustrates the fully human side of Jesus, a side of Jesus that can respond, change, evolve, learn from those around him. Now, I'm not gifted enough to explain the mystery of how Jesus is both fully human and fully divine, and how it might be possible that Jesus is evolving and learning just as we are today. I'm just trying to look at this story and see what it might have to tell us as a story. So to recap, the gospel says the woman was a Gentile of Syro-Phoenician origin. She begs Jesus to cast the demon out, but Jesus says to her, "Let the children be fed first. For it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." And to be clear, he's referring to the Gentiles as dogs, and that's an ancient slur, and it's not nice. And I don't like it. That's part of the reason why I really struggle with this. But she responds politely and wisely, using Jesus' own argument against him, saying, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he says to her, for saying that, "You may go," and her daughter is healed. At first, Jesus seems reluctant to heal the daughter because her mother is a foreigner and a Gentile, a cultural and religious outsider, an object, an other, something that he's not interested in relating to. When Jesus says that the children are to be fed first, he's referring to the children of Israel, the people that he has come to teach and serve, his subject, those he does want to relate to and with. But the woman's faith and her persistent argument catches his attention, so he listens. "Are you listening?" And changes his mind. She becomes a subject, not an object. A creature to be related to, collaborated with, not an object to be ignored. This encounter seems to mark a sea change of focus in Jesus' ministry. Instead of being sent only to the lost people of Israel, Jesus seems to become aware of a mission to all of God's people, Gentiles as well as Jews. This new discernment changes everything. The way of Jesus, the way of love, is for everyone. But this act of healing the Gentiles' daughter is not the end of the story. The very next miracle Jesus performs is to heal a man who can't hear. Is this an accident? Or is this Jesus trying to show us what you do when you listen and you learn something, when you treat something as an object and then realize they're a subject? Jesus opens not only the deaf man's ears, but his tongue too. And immediately following this in the text, though it's not included in our gospel reading today, it certainly should because it feels related to me now. Jesus duplicates the feeding miracle of the 5,000 Jews, this time to 4,000 Gentiles. I wonder if Jesus is trying to emphasize that he hears, first with the healing miracle and then with the feeding miracle. The Syro-Phoenician woman says, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." And Jesus, in the end, responds with feeding with more than crumbs. He feeds 4,000. So I wonder if Jesus is trying to model for his disciples here, who were also Jews and would have had the same biases against the Gentiles that he had, how to behave when you realize your biases are wrong. You repair, you reconcile, you make reparations, you give 4,000-fold. And I wonder what this model might tell us today, how to behave when we hurt others, when we exclude others, when we treat others as objects, when we treat creation as an object instead of a big C, subject, and part of our sacred family. So I would invite you this week to just listen to creation. What is it trying to tell you? What are our temperatures and our fires and our storms and our birds and our rain and our beautiful mountains and trees and endangered species trying to tell us? Are we listening to our neighbors, especially those on the edges, those we don't agree with, that we might even dislike? Are you listening to know that you are a beloved creation with a capital C, a subject of God? And do you know that God is sending you messages of love and guidance every day, every step of your life? And that as you grow in love and wisdom and learn to listen to the Spirit, that you too are a part of creating the ever-evolving kingdom here on earth. Are you listening?